And that's exactly why these strict environments are inducive to practice. And the ones that are more comfortable are not so inducive.
In regards to stream enterers, what I'm saying is whether they have, stream enterers has not such a strong identification with body and mind, right? But still there's a lot of identification compared to an arahant or to an anagami. So to which extent, this is another question, should, if you want to recognize a stream enterer, to which extent should this identification be? How can you say, he's identified 80%, 60%, 40%? How can you find out?
How do you want to know? The moment it's gone, you know.
No, but it's extremely...
You remember, sometimes I talk about that. It's not very clear. A stream enterer still has the full measure of greed and hate. But the full 100%. Where's Fritz's coming? The full measure of greed and hate. But he has as a protection his sila. So his morality and his virtue. That protects him from not going down into the hell.
That's it.
That's the difference.
When you read in books, theoretically, they say that a stream enterer has, to some extent, overcome this identification with body and mind. There is less.
Yes, and then when you read what Thanachen Mahaprabhu, or when you hear what Thanachen Mahaprabhu says, then he says this is wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
How is that?
Well, you didn't read the Life of Inequality, the last chapter. There he says, the identification of the body is not gone. It's only eliminated in the anatta.
Yes, we know this.
Yes, so.
No, in Arahant he says, not even in the Anagami.
No, Anagami, its identification with the body is gone.
Yeah, body is gone, you're right.
Yes?
But this was my previous question. To what extent because you start as a stream enterer, they have to somehow, yes, because even us, very normal human beings, have somehow, let go a little bit of this identification. You can see for yourself, we can see for ourselves. Yes, a little bit. It's not like it was 20, 30 years ago. There was a total identification with body and mind. Now it's different.
Talk for yourself.
It doesn't matter.
Yes.
People who
practice. If you talk about practice, we have to talk about our personal experience. You cannot talk about other people. So don't mix it in. So that then it becomes much more clear. When I talk about my experience, and I talk about my experience. And my experience are not the experience of others.
Sure,
and my path of practice is not the path of practice of others.
Sure.
But it has some similarity. When I look at my path of practice, then it's very similar to what I understand of the path of practice of Thanachen Man and Thanachen Mahaprabhu. So they're going in line, they go pretty much in line, and also the experience that are along this path are pretty much in line. Any other than this I cannot teach, I cannot talk about, because I don't know.
But for instance, can you see for yourself in your own practice that the way you could identify yourself, with the body and with the mind of, say, 20 years ago?
Of course, it does.
Changed.
It changes.
Right?
And if you do not practice correctly, it will not change. But if you practice correctly, it will change. It will lessen. You know the 10 fetters.
Yes.
The 10 fetters, one is doubt.
Yes.
The first three are. One is doubt. The other one is not keeping the precepts or fiddling with the precepts. One day keeping it, the next day breaking it, the next day keeping it, and the next day breaking it. That is the second fetter. And the third fetter is the identification that I and the body are the same thing. It's not it's this identification with the body, that I and the body is the same thing. It's the same thing as if you view a car and the driver as one unit. So this is the identification.
I'm talking about this.
Okay. If you talk about that, but that has nothing to do with greed and hate.
Okay. And I'm not taking greed and hatred as, into the picture.
It's difficult to say, A stream enterer has a very deep experience. He has seen Nibbana for the first time. And he knows that it was different. He might not know if he has not gone through the deep state of Samadhi. In the deep state of Samadhi, the kilesas are addressed, completely addressed. He doesn't see them. But Nibbana, the 5 khandhas are gone. And that's different. So people who go into the deep state of Samadhi and come out, they think they are in life. And it changes their views, of course, because they know there is something else. But it's not the stream entry of Nibbana. What happens when you enter the stream is you have this. And that holds only for a second. Or even less than a second. When you come out, you know that there was something very special. And you might understand how this I, how this ego is built. You might understand it. You might have the experience where you actually see it in slow motion, how the whole concept of this whole world, how this life, hides the fact that we are not there. Not there. This can be the case. I'm not sure. Some people might have this experience. And then, so this is one thing. You understand. And this understanding nobody can take away from you. If you align with the Buddhist practice, if you're in another kind of practice, if you're a Christian or do some practice, then you might not understand what happened. When you have a good teacher that can explain it, then he said, it might be. It might be. But what happens after that? So it's Magga Phala. So Magga is the past moment. You see Nibbana. You understand, this is Nibbana. This is your true home. And when you come out, you see how this whole castle of self is built up. Constantly built up. But you see it very in slow motion. And this is your understanding. And then what happens after it is power. Is the fruit. And the fruit is a waterfall of the soul. That can keep up to a month. Because then you reconsider everything you heard about Dhamma and you understand it on a different level.
And then the urge starts.
And then the urge can start or it can delay, it doesn't matter. But you will be gone. You will always remember it. It depends on your experience, it depends on the environment you were in while you were having this experience, and it might make you go faster or it might make you go slow. But you will never forget it. You might forget it for 2 or 3 months or 4 months, get lost, but then you come back. But it has not touched greed and hate. Greed and hate is in the full measure. And if you remember what I said, the Sotapanna first is the first person who sees his next path or his next work. So he sees for the first time clearly greed and hate. This is greed in me, this is greed in me. The Sakadagami is very difficult to see, because there greed and hate is cut up to half. That's all what is there. But the Sakadagami has the same experience. He still sees, but he still sees it even clearer. Not only greed and hate within himself, but he sees it in other people as well.
If he stays in this state of realization.
No. This realization is once, but it has an impact like a bomb. And this impact is never forgotten. But the kilesas, the moment you drop a stone into the water, it hits it, it goes to the ground and sees it, and then the water closes up. Or like Thanachan says, what is it? The viduct, covers the clear water. You don't see it. But you know that the water is fresh, and you know where you can go.
But it's not by force one can get it back to this stage.
Thanachan says you can. Whenever he wants to come back, but then he needs a good samadhi, then he can go back. From my own experience, I don't know.
But this is the third stage of samadhi, isn't it? When you can by
it's
force
not,
come...
No. It's not. It has nothing to do with samadhi. In Nibbana, the 5 khandhas are gone. But you don't even know that the 5 khandhas are gone, you just know that it's different. That samadhi, when you know it before, the deep state of samadhi, then you know it's different. It has a different impact. And Nibbana must, where everything that is within this threefold universe, that exists within this threefold universe, has to disappear. So the khandhas are of this anicca anatta dukkha, are out of these 4 elements. So they have to disappear if you really want to see Nibbana. And this, when they all disappear, that makes it impact. That it's like an atomic bomb.
That's what you said is the...
She assumes she has extreme empathy.
May I ask a question about an experience?
Yeah, sure.
If one falls into... You had this similar question last time. When we go in a certain state of samadhi, in meditation, I had a very, very heavy experience from pain and broken heart and stuff. And for weeks I went into this, who is behind this pain? Who is suffering actually? Who is there? And the more I went there, really in a few seconds, there was nobody, nothing. That was exactly this experience of non-existence. Exactly, I was so amazed actually. I slipped through. It was few seconds. I had no time for nothing. And when I came out of it since today, that's one of the reasons why I'm here now. I can't go on in the old way I was living. And what kind of experience is this then?
What happened afterwards?
I didn't have any pain anymore, any problems from this experience before. Was the feeling of lightness, to being very light, and seeing very clear my path is going straight. There's nothing else to do anymore. There's nothing to work for, to earn money, just to support this body, and a little bit after some weeks there came some depression also, and then, but I always took myself out of this and said, I know why I'm here, like this, and yeah, up and down, but actually very clear within the deep inner self. There's no question anymore.
So, it's more likely that you had to rest or the chitta, because of all this dukkha, retracted itself into the deep state of samadhi. And the deep state of samadhi is unification, holiness. So you're back at your home. You feel like you're back at your home.
Yeah, that's
When you come out, it has also a big impact. For people who never experience it, it has a big impact. And it comes, and it can happen to people who have a lot of dukkha, or have a lot of worries and things, and they just fed up. I know an old friend of mine, once I visited him, he was so overloaded with work, and then one day he came home at 10 o'clock, and he just stared at the watch, and stared and stared and stared, and then suddenly 3 or 4 hours had gone. And he had this kind of deep experience where the mind completely shut down. And he didn't know what it was, so he asked me. But that happens, that's no methodical, that's no trained happening. It just happens because we have so much dukkha and we want to have a relief of this dukkha.
Is it possible that happen like spontaneously?
Yes. It can happen spontaneously, it can happen, the way, you have a lot of dukkha, it can happen anywhere. Now, if that happened to us before, it's rather difficult to get the method, to go back. Well, because it just happened because of our intense effort, because we really let go. The dukkha was so great that we really let go. And if it doesn't click in your mind, then you know exactly what you have to do. You have to sit through pain. Through pain. So you have to sit not only 3 hours or 4 hours, you have to sit through the whole night. Yeah. Yes. You have to force it. If you don't have enough dukkha, you have to force it.
Some people say that, they make, they put the legs in a way that it will be painful, so that they get dukkha in order to work with.
You don't have to force, just sitting there, just comfortably sitting there. If you sit for 3 or 4 hours, the first wave of pain is gone. And if it's the right wave of pain, in the end, it's so big that you think you will die. And if you go beyond this, then the pain will disappear. And after another 3 hours, the next wave is coming. Then you think you burn in fire. You will burn in hell.
So I will not come to this state again unless I really go.
Unless you force it. If we are so, normally, how because in the old time force themselves, they went in front of a tiger.
Because there are other ways also.
Yes. Or fear is one thing, pain is one thing.
This is to trigger what? To trigger samadhi.
Yes.
Yeah, it breaks down. Yeah.
But it's only temporary. It's forcing it. You don't know how to get back there again.
Well, that's why you force it and force it and force it.
Sounds like just going out and somebody taking drugs just to pass themselves out.
No.
Well, think about it correctly and then ask again.
Some people can reach very high states.
If you don't force the mind to be at one point.
But the comprehension is not there most of the time.
You're taking on more defilements.
Yeah.
And through drugs,
Quite down. Not inside discussions. If you don't force the mind to stay on one object, it will go away. No matter what way you use to force, Some people, or persuade, whatever nature our mind triggers. Some people need some more force, some people need some more persuading, but the people who persuade, sometimes need some force, and the people who force sometimes need some time of persuading. It's never one. If we don't do that, the mind will never stay. So that's why the bhikkhus in the older times use fruit method. They sit in the front of a abyss, and they know if they get tired, what they usually did, they will fall down, and that's the end of their life. And just this fear keeps them awake. Or the fear of the tiger, or the hearing of the tiger will stir them up. And they have no way, no place to hold themselves except the Buddha. Like Thanachand Chop, he went through a forest. He was wandering, and then in the evening, about 4:00 in the evening, he came to a village, and he wanted to go to the next village, but there was a huge forest between these two villages, and the villager said, if there's somebody going in the night through that, nobody has ever come out. Why? Because they are ferocious tigers. I think that looks good. So he walked in. And the moment dawn came up, there was a path, and he saw all the tiger, footprints along the path, lots of them. So he walked and walked. It came dawn, and then he saw a tiger, a big tiger. He said it was like a small horse. Came out in front of him. He had his lantern already lit because it was becoming dark. So he stood. And then he looked around because he heard some noise, and another tiger was behind him. Both crouching to jump on him. So he just repeated Buddha, Buddha, and the next thing he noticed was that the sun was coming out. His lantern has gone out. He stood in the same place. The tigers had disappeared. He was standing in deep samadhi for about 10 hours. Then he walked back. Ajahn Chah. And most of the people, or most of the monks, because ordinary people don't do that, most of the monks who have experienced that with a tiger, either being sitting on the path of a tiger where they know, or sitting in the cave where they know the tiger is coming, have experienced it. Their chitta was so afraid that they went into deep state of samadhi for at least 10 or 12.
Fear.
Fear. Fear is very, very good. We're all afraid of it.
But at the same time, fear can stop you from meditation because of your worries and.
But that's,
The first stage, yes.
Fear and pain are the more difficult things. The fear prevents you from actually going into the Upachara Samadhi. Because you're afraid, that you lose control.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and if you don't overcome that fear, you will stuck there forever, for the rest of your life. So you just say, okay, whatever happens, if I die, I will die. At least I die in a good state.
I haven't come to that.
It comes up. The moment you're close to, the moment the breath disappears, you're afraid. But when you go to sleep, you're never afraid to wake up. But you could die in your sleep. So, why are you not afraid?
The night I slept when I went with Ajahn to Tudor last year, I slept outside, and I had only the mosquito net, those you just put on the ground. That was my very first time that I stayed during the night in a place in a bamboo place. And I tell you, I was scared, much scared of snakes because my great fear is snakes, not so much tiger. Even if, of course,
well, if you see a tiger, you know it's
Sure, but for me, if you tell me, do you prefer seeing a tiger or prefer to see a snake? I tell you, tiger. I mean, I know she can eat me, but I prefer a tiger, no matter what. Anyhow, I was there, and I was scared of snake, and I couldn't help but think, I kept thinking about snakes, to the point where I said, well, I'm not going to sleep the whole night or I'm going to meditate or no sleep. But at some point I said, well, let it be. I can sleep now. I meditate for some time, but always, with attentive to any little sound, and so many sounds because the bamboo leaves on the ground, they can be moved by the men. So every single, I was there with my ear. And in the end, I just gave in to sleep, really. But I checked within. I said, okay, let it be. And I felt tranquil after that. I accepted. And I said, okay, now I want to sleep. And I go to sleep.
Yeah, but that normally happens, if we accept the situation. If we accept our karma, we always do tranquil.
Yeah.
If you're in a situation that we think, it's unfair, unjust, or...
But the following night, I didn't go out to sleep there.
Because you still were afraid.
Yes, exactly.
See?
I didn't want to go through the same experience and having to do the same thing.
That is fear.
Yeah, I know.
But wouldn't it become less if you continue?
No. Only if you go through fear. Then it's gone. If you go through pain, once you really go through pain, that doesn't mean that it works for the first time. Some people need 100 times or 10,000 times, to go through pain until they understand. And the understanding is the only thing that relieves us. The understanding of the fear, or of the cause of fear, the understanding of the cause of dukkha, the understanding of the cause of pain. That is the meaning. So we just don't sit down like yogis in pain and just go through the pain, but we investigate the pain. So it's the same thing, investigate the fear. Tanacha was talking about a disease that wiped out 4 to 8 people a day, and he was staying at the cremation ground, and he caught it. He knew he caught it. And he was stuck. He wasn't yet armed. So I said, okay, if I die, I will die. And then he went through the night. And the next day was gone. But he saw, every day, 4 or 5 corpses brought up with the same disease. He knew the origin of the disease, and he told you. And he was still afraid at the stage of Anagami, to get stuck, to die before he got But that was a different kind of fear. It's not the fear, of the ordinary people to die, because the Anagami doesn't have any fear to die. It's not death itself, but it's a fear, not getting to one's goal. To get stuck. Anagami still, can still live to 50,000 years, up to 50,000 years before you get to arahantship.
And there is a limit, 50,000 years.
Yes.
Where is it?
10,000 years per stage. There are 5 different stages. And the first stage is the rupa, or attachment to the rupa jhanas. The second is attachment to the formless jhanas. The third is attachment to, what is it?
Conceit.
Is it conceit? Yes, conceit, restlessness, in the last one is avijja. And if you think of avijja as blindness and darkness, that's not the avijja we're talking about. When you see it, it's a diamond.
The avijja was doubt?
No, avijja is
Ignorance.
bad ignorance. What is
Avidya.
ignorance?
Yeah, avidya in India.
Well, what is ignorance? It's all. It's all. It's everything.
Yeah.
It's not only ignorance. It's delusion. It's magic. It's everything that you can imagine.
Everything.
The whole universe consists of it.
Mm. Yeah.
That's why if it has the power to create this universe,
Yeah.
if it has the power to keep us in this threefold universe, then imagine.
How powerful it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And imagine how difficult it is to step through this kind of delusion.
Yes. My goodness.
If you're Christians, if you imagine this to be God, then you have to step through God.
We were saying before, imagine how fortunate I feel, so grateful, to the person who really helped me so much to come out of this ignorance, not just this step. To be in this path, to have these teachings, such a gift, a precious gift. I can never repay, my debt of gratitude to this person. Never.
I have one question about this investigation, because I hear and read it everywhere. Is it now the same what we just say, you go through and you just know by the experience, or you also analyze where does it come from, who is the one who is suffering, and somehow, somewhere you come to it that there's actually nothing to...
That's a talk on itself, that's not just a simple
Yeah,
answer.
no, it's okay.
When you haven't been there when I was talking about investigation, I was putting up a few talks about investigation. In cause, it's anicca, anatta, dukkha, the three characteristics, what we investigate. It's the five khandhas that we investigate, rupa, vedana, sanya, sankhara, and vijnana, and it's the fourth one. That is what we investigate. That's what we're trying to break it down. So investigation is breaking it down to make it easier, to make it simpler to understand the process. When I said before, avijja is a magician, he just pulls out all these different colored cloth or the rabbit or saws up people, and then puts them back together. So this magician has an enormous power. So we have to understand his tricks. And that is the way of investigation. The understanding is not taking place in our mind, the understanding is taking place in our heart. So we have to teach the heart. The way of wisdom is the way of teaching heart. You see, do you understand? No, I don't understand it yet. So you have to do it. It's like you do an experiment. A physicist does an experiment. If he is not mindful all the time, he will not understand it, and he has to do it over again. And that's why some of the people where the mindfulness, the sati is not enough, they have to do it 10,000 times. If sati is good enough, if he catches every step of the process, he needs to go only through pain one time until he understands. But if sati is not enough, he must do it 100 times, 1,000 times, and 1,000,000 times, until he understands. And the understanding is taking place in the heart, and that's the only place where we cannot doubt. As long as the understanding takes place in the mind, it might be helpful, it might not be helpful, but we can doubt. That is not wisdom. That is knowledge. Knowledge has its use for going on the path, but wisdom is the force that cuts through the fetters. So when we talked before about the fetters, if greed is reduced by 5% or 10%, or doubt is reduced by 5%, we cut it down and it becomes less and less and lesser, and the last cut cuts the fetters. So if the big if the fetter is like a huge rope, and we take a knife and cut it, but we constantly cut it, becomes smaller and thinner and thinner and thinner until the last blow it breaks. So it depends on our knife, if it's sharp enough, if the knife is not sharp enough, and the knife is the wisdom, and sati is the sharpness. So if you don't have sati, there's no use. Neither for samadhi nor for investigation. Sati panya are the superpowers that we have to go beyond anicca, that we can deal with. And panya is only developed, wisdom is only developed by investigation. As I did for myself, you understand it? No, not yet. Okay, you have to do it. Until the understanding is clear in the heart. Only then. The moment I can doubt my understanding, I know it's not right understanding. And it seems so perfect, even after I've done it 100 times, it seems so clear, I don't want to do it. If I feel I don't want to do it, and I know I have not understood it correctly. The heart is the only thing that can let go. And the heart lets only go the moment it understands it completely. So don't worry about the mind if it understands. If the mind understands, even if a reasonable person understands, it's alcohol is not very good for us, he still drinks. If he really understands it, what it does to the process, what it does to the body, what it does to the mind, there's not the slightest interest.
Same with cigarettes.
Yes, I did it with cigarettes.
Yeah?
Me also. Completely.
Yeah.
You can offer me 10,000 times. I'm not interested anymore. But also no aversion. It's just completely neutral. Completely. I can sit with smokers, no problem for me, but I don't care about it. It's amazing. Okay, now I got it. I think I understand what you mean. Yeah, that's investigation.
Yeah. So that is the main thing about investigation. We have to teach something. Teaching the mind we have done in the West, and it has, it's futile. It's in vain.
Make it more worse.
Well, it makes, we have a lot of knowledge. And this knowledge is the thing that prevents us from seeing it.
And thinking
we think we know.
We know the whole world.
We are better than others. And conceit is nothing else. The last, or what is it? The third feather, or what is it? The seventh feather. Conceit is nothing else than thinking I'm better, I'm less, or I'm equal. It's not the conceit that we think the conceit. It's a different kind of conceit. So during while we're doing practice, if we have a sharp knife and doing the investigation, then we cut along the fetters, and we will cut them up, and cut them up. There is no way to say when the fetters will break, or when the feathers will be broken. It's like you start working through, making a tunnel through a mountain. You don't see it, while you're working in the tunnel, you don't see any light. You just chip off one stone after the other. And one day, it's the last stone. And don't think, you can do it in a week, or month, or a year. When I came here, I just did the same thing, every morning, every day, every night, 7 years in a row. Or 6 years. Investigation of the body, nothing else. Started in the morning and in the evening.
It's really good to put aside any.
You have to put your whole life. You have to put the past, and you have to put the future aside. And that is the good thing. Once you are ordained as a monk, that is the way. And especially if you're Western monk here in Thailand, because the family is far away.
Because the
Family is far away.
yeah.
All your friends are far
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
You are just by yourself.
Mm.
That's why Thanachan actually liked the Western, because they have gone through a great deal of letting go of their past and attachments to the families and friends.
In
In
India,
Thailand-
they think the same, teachers, meditation teachers, they have a lot of respect for Westerners because they say, look, they're here without any such support.
Yes, but it's only a few Westerners who survive as well. Most of them will go back. And I go back maybe after 2 years, 3 years, or 6 years. Aaron has gone back now.
Well, but he might come
Doesn't
back.
No.
He hasn't gone
No.
back. Are you sure?
No.
I've seen him before he went. One of those chances, which are never chances.
I spent with Aaron 3 months every night. He came at 7 and left at 1 o'clock in the morning.
But Ajahn Dix said every night they used to go to his kuti and talk to him.
After that he came to see me. And sometimes he wasn't even there. So I pretty much know what was going on in there. Louisa, you like your views. You adhere to your views.
Excuse me?
One, you adhere.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
I ask questions, right? I don't have views in regards to other people. Absolutely. I just hear what they say and I take for truth what I've been told, especially by monks.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
I believe
But
them.
the monks have views as well.
Definitely. But
So if you listen
I
to
believe
one monk,
I believe you, but I tell also what I heard.
Yeah.
So which version is, correct?
So,
I'm
so
asking
forget
you.
both versions. It's not important.
Okay, but poor Aaron
So, see,
wanted
no,
to leave.
no. I just want to make a point. It's not important. Aaron is Aaron. But we have to take care about ourselves.
Yeah.
If we always think about taking care about other people, this is also a trick of avijja. That's why in this Buddhist practice we have been given the opportunity just to look at ourselves.
Sure.
And not to care what this person is doing or what that person is doing. That was the reason, and Thanachan was very strict. If he saw 2 months fighting, he didn't ask who was the cause and who was
Both were out.
both immediately. No, not even a question. What they were fighting about, or what they were arguing about. It was arguing. It didn't mean physical fight. They were just both. He was just not interested. And he says, if you look at other people, and he tells his monks very often, don't watch others. Watch what is going on within yourself.
Sure.
Because there is the cause of everything.
True.
And to judge other people, we are not in a position to judge.
Nobody wants to judge it. But you asked me a question, and I said, I've seen him.
No, I didn't ask you a question. You came with your answer. I talked about Aaron, and then...
Sure. Yeah, you're right.
See, and that is always the same thing.
Sorry.
Whatever subject we take up, be it the subject of the book, this book you gave me, it's the same thing. It's always,
But you didn't read it?
No, of course not.
So? What are you talking about?
Well, I looked at the first 2 or 3 sentences. So, and that was enough.
Not enough.
See, now, I want you to look now there. There's something touched in your heart. Is your heart free? Is it open-minded? No, it's not. And this I want you to see. I don't want to convince you that I'm right. This is not my purpose. I want to see that there's something clinging within your heart, and that this Just this clinging brings you dukkha. Because the heart grabs something, doesn't it? Just right now.
Certainly does to a certain extent,
Yes.
to certain things, but
Yes.
not to this thing.
It doesn't matter. It grabs. And that's why the reaction of this grabbing is the reaction of opposing. Look in the heart, don't look in the mind. Is it a feeling, of pleasantness, of calmness, of coolness? When the heart attaches, it grabs, it contracts.
Right.
And when the heart contracts, it makes some movement. And when the heart makes some movements, the mind starts to move. The mind starts to act. And then thought, speech, and bodily action. The chitta is sitting right. Please,
we don't have
why
to
can't
talk.
why can't you listen?
Okay.
See how it jumps out and wants to argue. Who is that wants to argue? Then I'm finished, and you have a question and you can ask. But arguing is always and this argument comes from the view. You have grabbed so long. And I don't accuse you, everybody of you. But you are just a perfect example to show. The others might not dare to take it up. See? It's nothing wrong with you, It's the same principle in every one of us. Or in every one of us. It's this principle, Having some hidden views. And if the teacher is good, it just brings it up. So that the person himself can see how the heart attaches to it. And how it immediately takes up a reaction. But before this reaction comes up, if you're mindfulness, you see it. The heart contracts. And then some mind movements are coming. And then it comes out of the mouth, and then it comes out of wants to support even the mouth, with all this bodily action. And this is quite a few steps, and all whatever. I don't want to say this is wrong or this is right. I want you to see that. And then I ask yourself if this is something that is really peaceful, quiet, calm. If it's not peaceful, if it's not quiet, calm, then you can be sure that it's clear. Then just chuck them. Don't allow them to ever interfere. So watch it. Watch it very closely. When you listen, be always attentive to the heart. What is the heart doing? If you have enough mindfulness, you always hear what the heart is doing. If the heart starts pumping, you know there's something wrong.
I have a question.
And why? And you know why the chitta is so close to them? Because the heart is the prime mover. The physical heart is the prime mover for getting all the activities in the mind and the rest of the self. So the chitta is extremely strong. So it manipulates the physical heart.
Wait a minute.
Look for yourself. I don't say you have to believe it or not. Look. And when I mean look, look inside. What is happening? How is it happening? This is what I mean, This is investigation. How is it happening? What is coming first? What is coming second? What is coming third? We have to understand the whole train of events. And only if you understand the whole train of events, we can let go. If we catch the train only at the end, then we have to roll it back until the source comes. This is true investigation. This is investigation to get at the source. Not fiddle around with the weed, or with the leaves of the weed, or with the flowers of it. Grab it at the root. Don't be concerned about all the flowers and the leaves and get down to the stem and get down to the root. So if something is happening, roll it back till you find the source. And once you find the source, it's so hilarious. You have to smile or laugh. Or you have to hit your head against the stone because you think how stupid you are. that you have fallen for this. This I want you to understand. So look what the heart is doing. When you listen, when you ask questions, look what is the heart. The heart is the primary motive. Because the chitta and the heart are very close together.
What is this?
The chitta is the controller of the whole body.
Yeah, there's no fixed place for that.
Of course it is.
Somehow.
See? How do you know? Have you located it already?
It happens here, but there's no... How can you somehow...
How is your heart feeling at the moment?
It affects the whole
Look,
physical and
I
mental
only...
sphere. So
I don't say you're right, you're
nothing.
wrong. I only want you to look at the process. What is going on? How is one thing triggering the next thing? And how this thing is triggering the next. At the moment, all what we can do is look at the results and try to get one step ahead, one step back, to see what happened just before that. There was just a word I said, and that was immediately taken away. Interesting, isn't it? A word is a sound.
Okay, but then why making so many sounds? I mean, we can just be in silence and that's it. But words are there because people can understand certain concepts, and through concept they can work better, right? More correctly. And this is what I want to do. And people here want to do the same. So if I don't understand correctly the words I ask questions. And you are the teachers who are clarifying this for us.
Am I clarifying it?
I don't. You're trying to.
So I have to make it clear. Of course I have to use words.
Yeah, me I have to.
And use, if I'm using words, then I have to take up the language. And the language is built on concept.
Right. This is the means we have.
As long, to talk about the ultimate reality within the words of the duality is not possible. All what you can do is one time you put a spotlight on this, and the next time you put a spotlight on it.
Yeah.
And even if I say opposite, then I just put the spotlight on the opposite. If we do not understand where the spotlight is pointing to, and it's always pointing to the heart, to the seat of all the troubles. It doesn't matter if I put it from, if I shine it from the back or from the front or from the side, left side or right side. And as long as I use words, I have to use the words. And if my understanding, I use, of course, my understanding, how I understand the words. And of course, my understanding differs from your understanding. So you never you never try to look at the understanding of the word itself, but always look, what does it point to? So it's the same thing, you're from Italy, so when you see a sign to Rome, is that Rome? The signs are very different, isn't it? It can be completely the opposite. But they still point to the same thing. Rome. No. So understand. So if I use word understand, I'm just pointing, I'm just hinting. And that's the same as the Lord Buddha did. He said, I can only, if I can make you understand the thing correctly, there wouldn't be no need for you to practice. Mm-hmm. If the Lord Buddha, he said the same thing. If I can make you enlightened, just by using words, I would have done it. But I can only point out the way. And the way is a way of walking, the way is the way of practice. And of course I have to use the words. In English I have to use words English. And because it's not my mother language, I might use some different words that you are accustomed to. And it might mean something else to you than it means to me. So you have to ask, if you don't understand, you have to ask yourself, what does he mean? What does he point to? Or if I tell you now, then go just there. I tell you the principles of practice. I don't tell you, to understand this way or that way. I tell you that the principles of practice. This is how you do it. When you do investigation, this is how you do it. When you do samadhi, this is how you do it. If I could give you the flowers, maybe I would give them. But I can't. I can only point down to the fields where all these flowers are. But you have to make them. And I can point or hint at the obstacles that are in the way. And views, and clinging to words, and clinging to meanings, it's an obstacle. In the beginning it's a help to make us understand, to make us convinced to go the way. And in the end it becomes an obstacle. Because it clouds our mind. Our mind, only when it's free, it will see the truth. If he has some ideas about what samadhi is, we will never get into samadhi. If we let the mind go, then it will go and drop automatically into samadhi. But if we have views and understanding, the same thing for Sotapanna or Sakadagami. If we have understanding, this is a Sotapanna, or this is not a Sotapanna, or the Sotapanna is this experience or that experience, it just makes it completely mess. It doesn't let us really see what is seen. It doesn't matter. If you've been a Sotapanna, if you really have the experience of being a Sotapanna or Sakadagami, you will know it in your heart, but the experience has nothing to do with the word and all the concepts about Sotapanna. So you don't lose anything to let go of this. I'm not a Sotapanna. I still can go to him. And then you see something is shattering. Something is completely shattering in your mind because you cling to this belief. And then you see, whatever can shatter, let it shatter. Whatever can be destroyed, let it destroy. Because the nature is the nature of the threefold union. It's the four elements. And the four elements are anicca, anatta. Impermanent, constantly changing. They are not, that is not me, that doesn't belong to me, this is not myself. And they're full of dukkha. Full of pain, full of suffering. See it. See either of it. See the pain, see the dukkha, and see anatta. And see anicca. In the West we are so accustomed to anicca that everything changes, and even we are changing, that we say, that's the way it is. We never really reflect upon anicca. Anicca, our views are changing. 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we thought differently, we view differently. But now we believe in 10 years we'll still view the same way. Well, of course it will change. Everything has to change. Nothing lasts. Not our body, not our mind, not our five khandhas. Our five khandhas change all the time. And because it's changing, it's not us. We cling to it. That is the problem. We want sanya. We want our memory. We want our association. We want our thought. We want our consciousness. And we want our body. Even if we understand, if we have gone to the understanding that the body is not self, we still want this body. Because it brings us so much pleasure. We only see the pleasure. We never see the pain. When we see the pleasure, we forget about the pain. When we have the pain, we're looking for the next kind of pleasure. And that's the way of the mind. We forget, and look. It's like a child, who's falling on the ground and hits his knee or hits his head and cries, and the mother brings him an ice cream and he forgets everything about it. As if it just didn't happen. That's the nature of the mind. So why cling to it? Why to cling to something that just passes through? Let it pass through everything. Like clouds. Let it pass through. And understand. Remember what I said about the clouds? How we see figures in the clouds? We see whatever we want to see. We believe whatever we want to believe. But what has it to do with reality? Clouds are clouds. If you see a figure or not, the clouds are still clouds. So let's see the true nature of the clouds. But to see the true nature of the clouds, we have to relieve them of all the figures we see. Otherwise we will never. Just we relieve one figure and we see the next one. First we see a god, then we see a sheep, then we see a warrior, then we see a woman, or then we see a man. Whatever we want to see, that's what we see. Whatever we want to believe, that's what we believe. But it has nothing to do with reality. Reality is just is. It's just this one moment that really exists. And that's where we want to go. Just experience. And that's what in the beginning we have to force the mind to stay unwanted. Not to let the mind wandering off. And building concept is certainly wandering off. Isn't it? So when you listen to me, building concept is that you are actually not listening. Isn't it?
No.
So I made the point. I hope I made it clear. Didn't I? I understand. I don't mind a stupid question.
Thank you very much.
See? You caught on again.
No, I'm laughing, but thank you very much. It's not the first time.
If somebody can ask, if somebody is so intelligent to ask a question, even if it's stupid, it shows some sort of intellect.
But if one asks a stupid question,
of course we ask the question that we want to be relieved, and that this is something you ask very often. It doesn't matter if it's a book or if it's a person or if it's some views about the Buddhist doctrine. So actually you still haven't got to the clue why this thing is happening. That's why you still ask. Or still trying to make your comment. You still haven't understood it. And it might go on. I'm not angry with you. I still respond.
The monkey nature.
Yes. I want to see it, and maybe each time you see it a little bit more clearly. Maybe today you see it more clearly. Look at the heart, what the heart, understand the process. The reaction is so fast that we even But it has to build up. It's made of the 4 elements. When it's made out of the 4 elements, then it groups into the 5 khandhas. So it's made of the 5 khandhas. So the reaction before it comes out of the mouth, it must have passed through vijnana. It must have passed through sanya, through sankhara, and through vedana. So it's a mixture already. You already have a heavy dough that's ready to bake in the cake. You forget the flour, you forget the salt, and you forget the eggs, and you forget the water that you put in to make this dough to rise. And you put it on the oven.
I know it with anger reaction. To get this moment before it comes out, it's very, very difficult to catch.
Yeah.
Just this frame of second, not even a second. How to get this gap between I feel my heart is starting rising and things are happening so quickly that it's very, very difficult to investigate before my reaction is coming.
Even no worry. What we have to have is patience. I was training, half a year every day, looking, where's my mindfulness going? I went to work, where's my mindfulness going? Where are the 8 hours gone? I was, before I sat down on my desk, I was mindful. And it took me an hour after my work, when I sat in practice, to regain mindfulness again. So it took me every day, every night. So where was the mindfulness? Gone. Okay, tomorrow you try again to set it up during the work. It took half a year until I got one stop, one breath. So don't worry. It's a way of continuous practice, not letting up. And that's an enormous amount of patience. We want to catch it, and that is all. What keeps us at being mindful. How this is happening. And one day you will be able to catch. And once you got the first step, the next step will be easier. The first step is always the most hard. So when you see the anger arises, then at least close your mouth, that it doesn't come out. And the next time you think, before the muscle movements of the mouth, then stop that. And then next time, you stop. As I said, this whole train, you roll back. So you get a break there and think, just remind yourself what happened just before that. And then the next time you get a break at this point. And then you what happened before that. And then you try to get a break at that point. And it takes of course time and a lot of patience to come to the source. It can take years. It depends on the issue. Once we get to the source, it's gone. So don't worry. The more mindfulness you develop, the easier it is getting. Patience. Yes, of course. Well, if you have anger. Yes. Well, if you're angry with yourself, use it against the one who causes it. Use it. So who made me angry? Then I really get angry. Get angry at the kilesas who tricked me. And then you have a power that is much more valid. Anger is just an energy. So if the kilesas are using it, it's to our misfortune. If we catch this anger and use it to heal something, or to throw or make a blow at the enemy, wonderful. So people who are angry, the moment they learn how to deal with their anger in the proper way, can use it to their advantage. And they will advance faster than people who are much more too quick.
You said, when you have certain things coming up, well, I asked you a question once, like this anger, you realize it, and you react to it at first, and you try to cut it and say, no, what you're saying now, this energy you're trying to, because it's leading to anger, or that it's going to make it more rise, so you cut it off and say no in your mindfulness, but that is actually reacting to it in a way, isn't it? You think that you're being mindful and not allowing it to rise, but then you cut it off, and then the mind thinks about something else around that.
Yeah, so you really don't help, if I understand you correctly. What you're saying, you really don't help. When I say, use the anger and throw it, who caused this anger?
So you're saying, so when this anger
This is one way. Every time I talk about a different way, so don't take one way as the absolute way. So if you're angry, and you can't deal with this anger, then at least try to use this energy.
So that's what I'm trying
to throw at the kilesas who causes this anger.
I'm trying to.
This is one thing. The other thing is, if you can't control it, then look at the source. What brought it all up? There are so many different times, and each time I talk about a different way. That doesn't mean the way I'm talking is the only one that can do it. There are lots of ways. And the moment you really start your practice, you will find your own ways as well. And in the end, you have to change every moment. You have to change the way, because the closer you go to the power of the kilesas, or you're coming closer to avijja, the more you have, the faster your tricks run out to work. It holds for 4 or 5 minutes, and then you have to find another way, because they trick you again. In the beginning of our practice, a method we develop, may last, if you continuously practice maybe for 2 months or 3 months, it helps us a lot. And then we stick, attached to this practice. And then actually it goes in the opposite direction. Techniques are just techniques. If we are not mindful of what is happening, our technique that we are using can be the technique. The kilesas are not smart, they're learning with us. They're learning as fast as we do. So if they see, a technique that works against them, they're going to make it to use for them.
This is how it happens that people get stuck, and
Yes.
they say, they use it and they progress, but then at some point they don't go anywhere.
Yeah. They're going not. Yes, of course they're going anywhere. They're going backward.
Okay.
That is why sati, mindfulness, is the absolutely key. It's a fundament of our practice. If we don't know what we are doing at the moment, we know it's wrong. We do not practice. The moment we are not mindful of what is really going on, I asked myself in the beginning of my practice, what the hell is going on? Who has the command? That is mindfulness. What is going on? To understand what is going on. If you don't catch what is going on, you will never understand. If you don't see through this magician, we call it avijja, you will have no way to evade this. Because his tricks are empty. And he learns every day. So he has not a fixed set of tricks.
There's days of teaching at Bhagavad, but also Ajahn Chah. You remember his books? Sati.
Yes. But Satipatthana.
Exactly.
Yes. And the Lord Buddha said it.
Exactly.
And he said, he plays such an importance. He plays such an importance on sati. He said, if some people have sati, mindfulness, for 7 days and 7 nights, without lapse, they will gain within the 7 nights and 7 days enlightenment. Do you see the importance of sati? And if sati is not as good, it takes you 7 weeks, 7 months, 7 years, or 7 months. This is the importance of sati. This is our engine running at high speed. Our engine of investigation, our engine of samadhi. That's why it is, for us Westerners, so important to train this mindfulness. And we train it with samadhi. Being mindful of just this one object. If we can stay with this one object for at least 10 minutes without interruption, then we can turn to investigation. Then investigation is becoming useful. Then the knife is sharp. Then it makes some effect on the fetish. Otherwise, if you just use investigation with a blunt knife, it makes no impact. Sati is the important key. Get to know who is in charge. Because we are not in charge. Most of the time we are not in charge. Somebody else is working. And it's working so far. That means, sati, as I said before, with a train, running by at 400 kilometers an hour, we just see a shape of color. If our sati, that means we are running at the speed of 400 kilometers an hour, we see everything. What is this wagon? What is that wagon? Who sits in this wagon? What is he doing? If we don't run at that same speed of the train, we will never catch it. We will never understand. This is the sleeping wagon, this is the restaurant, this is locomotive.
Have you seen the movie Matrix?
Yes, I've seen it.
Acha.
But that
Do you remember in the third movie? There is
third I haven't.
No? There is this image of the train and the little girl whose name is Sati.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole a metaphor.
It's quite intelligent, this movie.
Yeah, it's really beautiful actually. And this little girl named Sati, and she is the only one who can stop the train, right? And so whoever is waiting, he's lost because he has lost his way. This is the protagonist, can get into the train and finally go to destination because it's so beautiful. I was so impressed by this, This is the main feature of the movie in the third part. Yeah.
It doesn't matter, it's so,
Yeah.
Such is the importance. It's the basis of our practice.
Yeah.
If we don't have mindfulness, whatever we're doing, and there's so little to do here. You don't have to worry about the past, you don't have to worry about the future. Whatever you need is provided. Think about it. Whatever you need is provided, so all what you can do, you can put your whole emphasis on that. From the moment you open your eyes. Tanaja Mahabodh said, it was hell for the first day. He didn't let his mind go. The first day was hell. It was hell. Because the mind wanted to go off all the time. But he kept it to Buddha. Whatever he did, eating in the bath, he kept it to Buddha. The second day was still hell. And the third day was still, but he was eating until the mind still. If you have no way of doing it, your practice will, just end it. You might see the different colors of the train, but that's it. If you cannot get your mind to one point and stick it for a while, so that it cannot run away, you will not be able to understand a lot of things.